Don't count the days. Make the days count. Muhammad Ali. Welcome to the Guyana Dialogue. I'm your host, Shamiza Ali. Our topic tonight is housing development for 2026 and beyond, including regularizing of squatting areas or providing alternative locations. The Guyana Dialogue is being sponsored by a coordinating council of Guyanese based in the US, UK, Canada, the Caribbean, and Guyana. Funding support is by well known philanthropist Dave Narayan from Dave West Indian Imports. Please welcome my moderator for tonight, Dr. Tara Singh. Our panelist tonight is Professor Muniram Budu. Our
Hello.
guest tonight is the Minister of Housing and Water, the Honorable Collin D. Croal. Welcome, everyone.
Good evening.
And also, please welcome our panelist tonight, Dr. Vishnu Visram.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Professor
evening to you.
Budu, are you going to be filling in for Dr. Tara?
Oh, here.
All right, perfect. Go ahead.
I can't hear anything. Anyhow, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me? Everybody can hear me? Okay. We are very pleased to have with us tonight the Honorable Minister of Housing and Water, Honorable Collin Croal. You know, he has been very busy like other government ministers. So we are very pleased that he can take time off his busy schedule to walk us through some of the developments in the housing sector. But before we go into the subject, I would like to ask him to give a little preview or a general comment on the progress of the energy conference in Guyana. Minister?
Good evening, Doc. Good evening to all your listeners. It's a pleasure to be back on your program. I always say that these type of programs, they help in terms of helping to disseminate information as much as possible. And as a government, we also want our citizens, our listeners to understand what we're achieving, to be updated as how we are progressing. And so it's very important. Information sharing is very important. And sometimes, some of the questions persons may have, some of the curiosity that exists it exists sometimes because of lack of information. Having said that, so we'll have an hour to be happy to share an update on the housing sector. But you asked about the energy conference. Yes, you're correct. That's a buzz right now. 4 days, over 4 days. Pack hall, number of participants. I want to start off by first of all zeroing on His Excellency President Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali speech to the conference on the opening, and that will say to you. And then there's also a video that was played, and it's on the social media that shows you the Guyana that we want to achieve, and we want to achieve in this period, this upcoming 2026, 2030 period. So there's a lot work ahead. All sectors, every sector, working aggressively. As you identified as ministers, I mean, we're pretty committed. We're pretty busy. All sectors are working to achieve our overall target. So, about the conference, the energy conference and supply chain, it's going well. I've sat in one or two of the sessions, but relevant topics being discussed, and it also allows for persons to understand that with Guyana, where we're going, and we're not being left behind, not because, yes, we're generating additional revenue, but also using the access to resources to be able to put us in a competitive environment, bringing us up to date in introducing programs with the maximum usage of artificial intelligence. So in a competitive world now, AI plays a major role, and that's why you'll hear His Excellency the President speaking a lot about AI. So it's an exciting conference. It's one where you learn a lot. You're updated as to what is happening, and then when you listen to all the presenters, especially those who are from not from Guyana, but who have an overseas perspective, they will all tell you that we are on the right path. And so they to say we are one of the fastest growing economy is not by coincidence. It's also how you manage. You can have all the resources, you can have all of the natural resources. It's how you manage your resources to ensure that that is put to the benefit of all people.
All right, thank you. Now, before we begin to ask about the achievements of the housing sector in the past 5 years and your plans for the next 5 years, there are two very pressing issues that is making the headlines in Ghana. I would like you to clarify them. The residents on the squatting area in Sconard complained that they were only given 1 week notice to move their house. If you can comment on that. And secondly, several diaspora people have been complaining that they are invited to go in Ghana to seek out opportunities, but when they go down there, they get pushed around. Like I know you have the one platform at the housing ministry. We rather run into several ministries to just input it there, and then even that they said is not working to their advantage. If you can comment on those two things,
Yeah, you're referring to the single window.
yeah, the single window.
So let me start on squatting first, and we come to single because they're separate topics. And I noticed you put that as part of your main topic on the
Yeah, yeah.
introduction of the program. We first of all have to say the right thing. And all of us, this just can't be a government initiative or a government program or a Ministry of Housing program. This has to be everyone's program. And that is to say the right thing that squatting, first of all, is illegal. Going on a portion of land for which you do not own, it's illegal. And that whether it's Guyana or is anywhere else in the world. And we can't debate, but we will want to say that we've gotten a little lawless in this regard. And so we have committed in our manifesto, and we've said this continuously, that our aim is for us to eliminate any re-squatting, as well as for areas where you have occupancy but persons do not own their land or don't own the land, we have occupancy but that we can regularize, then we have a massive regularization program. So you have two aspects: relocation, regularization. Now, in order to do that, we have to start somewhere. We have logged generally where are some of the areas for which we have persons who are squatting. There are some areas in no shape or form can one be able to be regularized in future to be accommodated on the portion of land that they may be squatting. So I refer here, like for example, whether you talk on the ocean beds or you're talking about the river dams. In this case, what you asked about is along by the Demerara River. If you're talking, so there, those are areas that you have no opportunity. And we have, for example, in the case where you're asking about is in Region 3, we have quite a few in Region 3 where persons are squatting and they will not be able to be regularized. So we have started a program in the last term, and we are continuing that. All persons, therefore, who is living, those persons who are living on lands that they do not have ownership for, or they have not been provided to officially, then they must know that they're squatting. But yes, let's give the flip side. You have a government that is compassionate, we have a government that is caring, we have a government that has understanding. We recognize that we have persons out there for various reasons in the past may have squatted. We have an aggressive housing program of allocations and addressing persons who have pending applicants, persons who have abided by the law, persons who have waited their period of time to be addressed, and they have done the right thing, and they should be recognized. And so I started off by saying that it's an issue for all of us, because we're governmentally we're saying the right thing, but then from a political perspective, from the political opposition, you're telling persons, oh, you have a right to go take a land. Guyana has vast land. Go occupy any land, and you should get the ownership. That's not saying the right thing. So that's why I said we have to be responsible. In the case of, we have a number of areas that are in the news actually, but in the case for where you're asking about Cane View, you have first of all you have a portion by Jovera Park. That is by the Demerara, not too far from the old Demerara Bridge, well, which is close to the. Persons have been notified. In fact, they should have put out a release by this afternoon. Sometime last year, the NDC would have informed those persons that they have to relocate. Those persons were there. They know that they won't be able to occupy. What do you need to do? Come into the Ministry of Housing, make your application, indicate to us, say, yes, I am interested in moving forward because I know I've been doing something wrong. But what you have is that when you're moving to address, because we have where our community development staff go to these communities, they're not coming in, the staff is they're going to the communities. And when you're not getting anywhere, then you have to issue notices to persons. So those persons, no, I'm not aware that they were given last week to say you have to move by this 1 week. But they all have to move because they have a particular time period. So we have engaged some of them it's 13 from my head, from my memory. It's actually about 13. Some have been brought in, and they have been engaged, they have been allocated to Wales, and then they can have a relocation process. You have, for example, areas like where we're trying to address Mocha. And I'm bringing these things up so your listeners can understand. So in Mocha itself, this is where a portion of area when you go south of the current Mocha Arcadia, where persons over a period were squatting on lands, state lands, but the lands actually belong to Gaisuku. And they were squatting on a number of areas in spread out. So what we said, we will regularize those persons because we were able to acquire 3 fields. There are 6 fields of land here. We were able to acquire 3 fields to consolidate and to be able to regularize those persons. So what it meant, we did an inventory. In all of these cases, for example, we have an inventory of the persons who are squatting. We did an inventory, and on that inventory, for example, will show that there are about 104. So I said 6 fields, right? So about 104 in 3 fields. Yet, so those persons will be regularized. Then there are persons who are occupying 3 other fields, 4, 5, 6, who have to move. So they have to be relocated because they will not be able to regularize where they're staying within the vicinity. That's about another 51 we're talking about. And we committed that we have enough lots in the first 3 fields to move those persons to within the area. When you're engaging and there's lack of response, then you have to raise the aggressiveness because it has to be dealt with somewhere and you have to be dealt with somehow. What is happening? When you regularize an area, you then put in infrastructure so that person has access to a road network. They have proper access. They have official utilities, so whether it's water, electricity. And more importantly, the people, for example, at Mocha that we're regularizing, they will have a document that they will be able to call their own, that is their title. Ownership is very important. So when you're squatting, you will not have ownership. You will not be able to pass that on to your children. You don't have security of tenure. So I want to say this to everybody. We're working. What you see happening now is that we have a ramp up in the sense that we're working in many areas. But the reality is we have an aggressive program and we have and engagement with our community development that oftentimes these persons don't come in. We have, for example, another area. I'm giving you the three that are in the news so your listeners can understand. There's another portion that is south of the Ogle airstrip. So I think they call that some in vicinity of Sophia Plum Park. Now you have a number of persons there. My memory says it started out about eight to nine persons we recognize. Now that's within the Ogle fly zone. That's on a dam that separates the two. I've seen comments in the news that said we're trying to put a road. Why don't we divert and put a road somewhere else? It's a dam. These things have importance in terms of one, it's a reserve, so access is important. Secondly, that's an area that is for the flying zone. So, for example, it's very close to our Cummins Lodge housing scheme where we build the houses. We have a portion of land between the Ogle airstrip and the Cummins Lodge that we are unable to build houses because the flight path, the Ogle authorities have said, the civil aviation has said, we can't build any further because it will affect the flight path. Those persons, we have said to them, they must move. We've engaged them. We've served contravention notices. Look, today, and I can always produce this. Today, one of the persons that was addressed from that same area is working for an income of $600,000. So some of these things that you see, it's not necessarily the impression that is given that they're all persons that are completely vulnerable and don't have a means. Some of it, it's otherwise. So we are engaging. We already started the relocation process, but if you do not approach it in an aggressive way, then those persons will continue to occupy and you will have little movement. So we're working with them. Our intention is not to throw anyone on the road, but it is illegal. Squatting is wrong. And yes, we are addressing them simultaneously while we're addressing, which we'll talk a bit a bit in terms of the other program, that is the allocation of persons also who are awaiting, doing the right thing, maybe renting, staying by family, or what have you. So we are striking that balance, but in addressing the squatter,
Okay, thank
it's
you.
not being done at the displacement of the regular persons who have
How,
applied.
how many squatting areas are there in Guyana currently that has to be regularized?
So we have pockets. So we have large sums in volumes, and then we have pockets. So for example, let me give you the 2026 program. On the 2026 program, we are projecting to be able to regularize over 1,000 plus such persons in various regions. I estimate on that it's about 19 areas of where we're regularizing on 2026 program. Now, regularizing will mean that we also have to go through a process, which we haven't spoken about, a process to be able to acquire the land to do such. You have to do the survey and you have to do occupancy. Now, when you're regularizing, this is another issue I want to bring to the fore for your listeners. When you're regularizing, we take cognizance of the persons who are occupying as of when we are addressing. So you have persons who may be claiming lands, but they do not have a structure in terms on the lot. Then what do you assume? Anybody can assume to be claiming a portion of land that and has no structure. So it deals with occupancy. And then similarly, we also have to cater for the alignment of internal roads. So like, for example, in the case of Moko, we have about 7 persons when we did the alignment for the roads that although we're regularizing in that area, we had to shift or move 7 such persons to accommodate the roads. Where we have challenges sometimes when persons do not respond. So for example, Amelia's ward, it was in the news, I think, 3-4 years ago. We had to break some fences and some homes because The persons were resisting because they were preventing the development of the access road for over 400 persons who will be getting access to the entire area. So what you see sometimes is not what you're not seeing is the hard work that goes in behind the scene. The hassle the staff goes through. Sometimes we have to go with some bit of protection. What you see sometimes is the complaints and uh, not sympathetic kind of politicians who are not working to bring betterment for the people, but only want to disrupt and not giving the right advice. So for this year, so we have different areas. We have logged the amount of squatting, but I can tell you in the 2026 program there are 19 areas
All
that
right.
we will be regularizing. Now,
Mm-hmm.
note I said they're regularizing. We
Mm-hmm.
also have relocation. So on the relocation itself, so we have places like Plastic City and some of those areas that I just mentioned to you.
Mm-hmm.
We have about 500 plus we're looking to be able to relocate on part of our aggressive program.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, Minister. Let's have Dr. Visions, since you are far away. Let's get your
It's only a click away.
yeah, any
Well, yeah, well. Firstly, let me commend the minister again for appearing on the show. As you all have pointed out, I am in India, where the AI summit is taking place, and the Vice President Jack Davis has been here, and in addition to the AI summit, there will be the iTech summit shortly thereafter, a few days later. So the VP is staying on for both. I'm glad the minister, the honorable minister, has given us an update about the energy conference and has stressed the importance of AI in Guyana's development. So listen, I have been traveling to Guyana very often. I mean, I'm sure the minister himself would have seen me so many times in Guyana, especially in Parliament and at different programs.
Yes.
I travel the coast very extensively, and yes, there is squatting all over the place. And look, you address a squatting area today, and another one will pop up tomorrow. That's the nature of people. They,
No,
they,
but
they,
we've made a statement, no new squatting. So this is why you're seeing a lot too in the news. We have said this definitively. No new squatting will be recognized. So yes, we know what is there. We have drone shots, etc. But no new squatting area will be recognized. And so the staff has been given the permission. Once we see a new structure going up there, or we have information, it will be demolished immediately.
good,
Yes,
good.
sir.
So I whether you're a critic of the government, whether you are a balanced reporter, commentator, or writer, I think it is fair to say that one must give this administration absolute credit for the amount of housing units they have provided over the last 6 years. I don't know what the exact number has been, will be. Maybe the minister will update
We'll
us.
talk about
But
yes.
yeah, but it is significant. Never in the history of Guyana have we produced so many housing units throughout the coast. I must have a complaint, Minister, that I believe the quarantine, the Berbice area, is somehow neglected, whereas other areas are getting a lot more housing. Now, whether the demand is in the other areas, I don't know. But I
Can we?
do.
I just came from Berbice last Friday and Saturday, so I can tell you the whole region six program, but that's not so. We have Molson Creek and we have over at Overwinning Providence, Glasgow area. We have houses being built in uh, at
Palmyra.
Palmyra. The whole area for Palmyra is in over 1,000 houses will be built there. That's different categories. So I'll want the opportunity to give you what we're doing for to provide what we're doing with the ministry over this period. But that
I,
would not be an accurate statement.
Yeah, so I just want to commend the ministry. No one can honestly criticize the government on the issue of providing housing. There may be some criticism on roads and so on, but certainly not the number of units that are being produced.
mm-hmm.
First, on then Minister of Housing, Irfan Ali, and continuing from 2020, August 2020 to now under Minister Collin Croal. It really is an accomplishment and an achievement that I have not seen in any other country, certainly not in India, and certainly not in the Caribbean area. So thank you, Minister, for the work.
All right. All
True.
right.
We still
Thank you,
have time for
Vish.
the window, so I just want to when you're
Go ahead. Go ahead.
sure. Yeah. So you asked about single window, and this with every intention is intended to be a transformational implementation. So whether um, Dr. Bisram is in India and he's making an application, or whether you in New York, you're making an application, you don't have to be here. That's the overarching intention. Now, we recognize that in the implementation, we would have had challenges, and we have feedback and we have complaints. So we recognize that. What we do? We put some additional systems in place to be able to work with the relevant agencies that have to support the work we're doing. So we have, in fact, every weekly now we have weekly reviews on the implementation of this project. So having said that, we had a backlog coming into the year, but the staff have worked behind the scene. We have gone to what is we call bliss. We've been going to the local authorities to work with them to have them clear their section of the applications that are required. The reality is that we are dependent also on the other agencies for their input. The full implementation of the single window will speak towards that should we have a non-response within a particular time, then that will be deemed as a no objection. So your silence is deemed as a no objection. That's what the full implementation of the single window means, and that we have started to do that. However, we're not trying to implement that. What we've been doing is working with the NDCs, the municipalities. So in the weekly review that we are able to say which set of applications we have a bill up at which NDC. Similarly, we did have some initial challenges, and for example, at the fire service, because they have to give their necessary no objection. That is pretty fluid, and that is cleared up. We did have some initial hiccups with the L board. That is moving pretty fluid, and that is cleared up. So yes, your comment to say that it was not working probably as it should is actual. It's correct, but I can say that now we are on par, and we do have a prompt response within our purview. What we were working to achieve in this single window has to be no more than 4 to 5 days for the processing, and that's what the ideal response has to be. Now, there are two types of the major backlog. You have, for example, the families. You have the single family. So you're doing your regular house construction. Remember, historically, you would have gone to the local authorities and you have your plan approved, and then you start your construction. With the single window, that's coming through Central Housing and Planning Authority. That is then transferred on to the local authorities to be addressed. Of course, all fees paid here are then transferred monthly. So we still require the local authorities to play their role for the single families. Now, for the commercial aspect, which is where most of your queries would be, for the commercial aspect, we have even started, we're putting the staff, they're calling to follow up with some of the applicants, because what has happened is since it's something new for us, a lot of persons who are using or need to use the system have not even been following up on their emails. So the response was coming, the update on the portal is coming through the emails. The applicant may not be the person who has done to do this sign up to get their unique number. May have delegated that to someone, and that one person has not been checking. You as the business owner says, I have not heard, I'm still awaiting on my approval. So these are some of the nuances that we found it within the system. But I can say definitively we have movement, and we are implementing as it should now. But yes, there were some challenges, and I know of the complaints we have had. But the agencies that are involved are working with us to ensure that it's implemented. We still have our greatest issues, both with the EHOs or the EHAs that are involved from the local level, the local authorities level. Because remember, the reality is you're taking away some of these things that where subjectively Vishnu makes an application at XNDC. It's not getting anywhere, and when he flies into Guyana, then he comes literally and going behind someone by their desk and trying to follow up to get his movement. What we want, and I'm copying this word from the president. What we want from the system is predictability. We want, once you know these are the parameters for construction, once you have all of that in check, then there must be predictability with respect to your application. That is what we want to achieve. And
Mhm.
so, yes, we have beefed up our staff, we have increased the staff, and we are also doing follow up by calling
Um, all
applicants.
right. Thank you, Minister. We'll take a break now and then we come back to Professor Budu. Shemiza?
We'll be right back after these messages. Dr. Tara,
Okay.
please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. We are back to our program, and we're going to ask Professor Budu now, who is by profession a civil and structural engineer. And Professor Budu, over to you.
Minister Croal, good to have you back again. You have
Pleasure.
always been very clear and transparent on this program on housing and what. So good to know we have a minister like you. Briefly explain to our viewers, what are the social, political, and legal issues to regularize squatting settlements, the kinds of services that you provide, and including what's the approximate cost, because that's very important to get a person regularized on a squatting area, right? Costs money, and taxpayers have to pay for that. So could you go ahead and
Sure.
respond?
But I want to say though, because recognizing this is something we inherited, and this is something squatting has been here for years. So we do have a Guyana strategy for informal settlements. We call it both upgrading and prevention. We do have a project that we're implementing, and so we do have a paper in that regard. And the next stage we're doing, it's being reviewed now at the level of the ministers, and then our intention, both for myself and Minister Ben, would be then to take it to cabinet, obviously to get blessings, no objection. So we're working with a strategy, and in all of this, we don't. It's not a case that we wake up one morning and say, yeah, we're going over here or we're going over there, and in an ad hoc way. We have a listing, and we're working with a strategy to implement. Now, in terms of cost, yes, it costs additional. It costs additional resources when, for example, we have to spend extra time for a staff to be monitoring areas, to be engaging, constantly engaging. But it's a social necessity. As I said, we recognize a period of time in which our country was. And so that's why I said the squatting has historical context, but now you do not have that sort of excuse. But it would be more costly in that regard to be able to every time you have to uproot persons, and sometimes we do assist. We go as far even sometimes to assist in removal. We can recognizing when with the expediency, and we also work along to help persons with our program. Now, those persons, I want to make this point though, when we're regularizing, you have to go through a process with all of those applicants. So, for example, they have to be able to qualify for a house slot like somebody else who's waiting regularly in the system. And there are persons who are squatting that has application. So those persons will be obviously dealt with quickly. Legally, they have no legal grounds. It's illegal, and even, for example, when the recent case we had on the key and for you portion for when we want to construct the highway, the alignment for the highway, it was all we engage all those persons. They were compensated for even beyond for the houses that they had on the along the alignment. But even when they went to court, obviously they could not produce any evidence of ownership because the land was owned by Gaisuko. And in this case, when then transferred to NISL for during the last government period. So we have legal standing to be able to operate. And now we're working on it. I've spoken to the staff from enforcement that we probably will be going to every area and issue even a further standard letter notice to remind persons that of their necessity to come into the ministry, engage our department, the community development, or relevant departments, the region, with the various regions, we have housing offices. And secondly, to remind them that they need to be relocated, they need to remove. And so certainly, this is something we're working on
Yeah,
continuously. We have one department that is
mhm,
dealing with relocation and regularization.
yeah. But apart from those causes, your ministry is suffering from. You have to pay. The cost is that you have to build an infrastructure in that region, right? There's a lot of delay, and that costs money. You see, so
So, so the persons who have to move, from example, dams, etc., they're being allocated in normal areas for where we have our allocation exercises. So, for
mhm,
example, the set you asked me from Region 3, they have been allocated within Wales, where we allocated for normal. And for
mhm,
example, most of the persons within the Sophia area there, they have been relocated to then the NDRAC, etc. But it is also dependent on their category. So once we engage them with whether they're low, moderate, medium, or high, they are then placed among wherever we're the category of lands that we're allocating. Now, those lands, to let your listeners know, those lands, they are also paying for the lands in which they're going as per others who are being allocated. So it's not being given. So your listeners, those who have regular house slots they are waiting, the squatters are not given preferential price.
mhm. Now, but you provide. Let's say you provide a lot. What about a house? Do they build houses on it? You build houses on them? Do they get loans to build houses?
Good. So if we're building houses, then it goes through the similar system of where you pre-qualify for the bank. It's not that we're providing those houses free. We have
Mhm,
another program where for the core houses, and that had some criteria of that attached to it. For example, we just came out and we're on tomorrow, for example, we'll be handing over another, I think, 30 odd houses that we completed on the adequate housing, where those persons had to be low income. The cost of their lot for which they were allocated had to be within a particular parameter,
mhm,
and that's how they were able to qualify. But it's not a case we're building free houses for all those persons and then, allocating it to them. As I said, I want, while we're working with squatters, we also need to encourage persons to do the right thing. And we
mhm,
need to also reward persons who are doing the right thing. Now, this year, however, this brings me to this year. This year, we have for housing assistance, we have a total budget of 7.5. You have to take out 2.5 of that. So 5 billion available under us here at housing. 2.5 will be for hinterland housing program. And what are we doing? The continued implementation of our foundation project per se. You know it as well. It's called Steel and Cement. So this initiative started over 3 years ago, whereby for persons who have their land, and we have assisted with a voucher so that they can redeem to be able to, whether it's for the steel, the cement, or depend on the type of house they're building. So we have that type of initiative. Then we also have, for example, another one that we're adding is, and we're still to set out the parameters. So that's why I'm not giving you how one can apply, but I'm telling you what we've catered for in the budget. So we have, for example, another one that will speak towards persons who are constructing, but because they have been able to highlight that they have some challenges, we'll be able to assist a little. We are also catering for some core houses this year. That is coming from the budget. We are catering for core houses. We'll set the parameters. We'll announce that in due course. Sometime in March, we'll make that announcement. Again, but those will all be for vulnerable persons, people who are really in need. So the home construction support program will continue. As I said, we have $5 billion set aside for that initiative. And this is when you ask, or any listener asks, what are we doing for home ownership for a particular vulnerable, as I said, these are the sort of initiatives. So we still have, for example, in Letem, continuing the hybrid in the sense of government contribution. They have the cost of the houses, the $3 million being built. The beneficiaries have to contribute 2 million of that. The government is contributing 1 million. All they need to do is pre-qualify with the bank and also own the lot in which they live. We also still have continuing. We have now implemented a new initiative called Homestead Houses. We're targeting, for example, female-headed households. So in that initiative, we have added a shade house. And what the model for your economists there, what we were looking to do is to also being as for them to supplement their income, recognizing there may be their vulnerability, to supplement the income through the shade house program for the payment of their mortgage or even to expand further. That homestead program is going well. We have 50 that are complete, another 25 handed over very shortly, and we've just awarded for them to build another 30 something more, 37 more. And then in another week, we have about 77 more that they'll be awarded to complete. So we have about close to 290 homestead houses that within the next couple of months we will have on a new area at Yarrowcabra, but the correct name is Hyde Park. So we have some initiatives to support persons to support in terms of their construction. But again, as I said, there has to be some parameters on how you can apply and to be eligible.
Minister, most time you come on this program, we have always tend to ask you questions on housing. But you are also Minister of Water. And that's very important.
Not now.
Right?
Not now. I mean, I can answer, but not right now.
Yes,
Just Minister of Housing.
Oh, who's doing the water now?
Waters under utilities, Minister Indar.
Oh, I see. Okay. So I'm not going to ask you this question on water.
He has his work cut out because with electricity and water under his portfolios.
Yeah. Now, I've seen that people are also accusing the government, still accusing the government, of allocating house lots without infrastructure being in place. Could you address this?
And for me to answer that, we must get historical. It's a must. Because to understand where we're going, you have to recognize where we're coming from. And the volume of applicants that we have in the system, for example, when we got in this period for this 2026, 25, 26 period, we came in with 75,000 pending applicants. The largest volume you'll recognize, of course, will be Region 4. So what has happened? We allocated 53,000 lots in the last period, meaning between the 2015 to 2020 period.
2020, the
So,
2025.
2020 to 2025 period.
Uh,
Between the 2015 to 2020 period, mind you, I said 53,000
mm,
after. We're coming from where you had 7,000 plus allocations alone. So it built up, while at the same time applicants were coming into the system. You have persons who are coming in or continuously. So if the replenishment is not going as quickly, then you will have a build up. We don't
mhm,
have the therefore coming to current context. Coming to current context, we don't have the luxury of being able to await to start the process until you finish with the construction of an area before starting the process of allocation. What we want persons to do is we have reduced the time considerably, so we recognize yes there were a gap, but now we are working with a 1 year period. So for example, because of the fluidity now, once we are aware of the new areas that are to come on stream, we go out for those tenders. But there are three areas. It's in the news. The advertisement is out currently. There are three areas that you will hear complaints of that persons are waiting more than long, and that is, for example, in East Bank, blocks 1 and 7, and then there's a portion in Region 3 from the top of my head. And those three areas, we had to terminate contractors. We are re-awarding, we are retendering for those areas. So those three areas, those persons have the legitimate right to complain, and I don't blame, and I ask for their patience. However, right now we have ongoing exercises to show a number of new areas, and we also have signing for a number of areas of coming that whereby persons have access and they can sign for ownership. For example, last week when Doc mentioned about Borbis, we started signing for an area that was allocated before, number 75, 76. Um, we have a number of new areas on the East Coast that we'll be signing for. And so I understand the complaints, and I want to ask patience from your listeners. But yes, your government is working to clear that gap that we have to be able to bring on power as we do the allocation to have the construction ready. What
mhm,
we have done is reduce considerably the waiting time to have access to the land.
mm.
And what we're working to is to reduce considerably the waiting period to be able, once you have access, to sign for the agreement of sale and as well as for processing of title.
Now, one last question before I pass on to Dr. Singh. Um, do you have in the possession of ministry enough land for the lots that you promised?
So in terms of, so I want to tell, for me to answer that, I also tell you what we're doing.
Mhm,
What did we promise? We promised on this current period, we promised the construction of 40,000 houses. We promised the clearing of the backlog of all the regions. And we said clearly, and we're not, that's why I'm comfortable to speak openly at any time on housing, because we are clear on what we're doing, and we're not in a business of fooling people. And we've said the only exception would be Region 4. Because of that 75,000, for example, Region 4 has the largest pending applicants. So 50,000 of that 75,000 comes from Region 4. We will reduce considerably Region 4, and we are starting. So, for example, when we ended the last term, we were prioritizing 2019 and prior. We are starting now of prioritizing 2021 applicants and prior, and we will work and move it up. Now, in terms of land, to be able to do this, we have limited, the limitation will be in Region 4. And that is why we have moved outwards to, we have already shifted to the highway. So you have, for example, Silica City. We have the homestead that I just mentioned for you at Hyde Park. We have at Hararuni. These are all where houses will be built. But the reality is on the Region 4, we are getting close to where the wet portion of the land is. And so you will, if you do a flyover, you'll be amazed of the amount of open and vast area that we have done construction for. So we are working, the acquisition of lands is a continuous process. Ministry, the Guyana Lands and Survey Commission, the NISIL, we work very close. And then for Region 5 case, we work with MMA because most of the lands at Region 5, they're under the MMA. We have yesterday, for example, in-house, we were going through our updated document of where we'll be constructing the next set of houses. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to save those areas up front now, but we have worked out where for the next 2 years, where the houses will be built, because I also want to say this to our listeners, and especially for local listeners. I'm aware, I know a lot of persons are coming to the ministry and say, I have a pending application, or I'm seeking one of the house under the housing program. Just a little patience is required. With the volume of houses that we intend to build, there will be enough for all persons who choose the path of wanting houses over land. And there are reasons. There are both advantages and there are other reasons too, because in a professional environment, people working, they don't necessarily have the time to deal with construction. They don't have the time to deal with contractors, and for different reasons. Or sometimes you want houses that you can move in. That is why we went out to what is called for expression of interest for 5 different designs. We received over 200 plus expression of interest. 100 plus would have said they can self-finance, and these are for modular type houses. So what that means is to achieve the productivity that we want, because I'm coming to what you asked. We can't use the traditional way of constructing houses to do what we want to do. Obviously, from the feedback, our government, from the studies, there are a lot of persons who are persons who are coming in here now to say, please, we would prefer the house. We don't want to go through the exercise of building on our own. And so and then with a younger population now who are more able to acquire a house lot at an earlier age, then they too want to be able to start life very early and very quickly. So the land availability for Region 4 will be limited, saving except we're opening up much more on the highway. And in case anybody wants to say yes until the highway, you have to understand the macro picture of what we're doing, because we are already building out highways to access or open up new lands in various regions. So while we're talking about this planning, at the same time, you already have work whereby this year we'll have the completion from Busby Dam Craig to Landacanon. You already have the alignment from Landacanon to Soosdijk. So that the necessary funding and the program, the initiative to do that portion of the highway is being dealt with by Ministry of Finance. You already have the bridges for Region 3, for example, to Perica, a new 4-lane that will be from vicinity of Schoonard. That the bridge is already being done under Public Works. The road network is going to be done under housing. The tenders are already open. They're going through the evaluation phase. So very Not too long from now, we'll have the awards for those for that. I was 17 lots in which we allocated. So lands are being opened up. So yes, with what we are doing, we will have enough lands in the other regions. Region 4 will pose a challenge, unless of course we'll have to continue going further up on the east coast.
Okay. I let me take you back to a question I had asked initially. Is there a policy to accommodate diasporans, overseas-based Guyanese, to get house lots or houses under any existing program?
So in the past, a lot of persons in diaspora, they always ask for this, what you call a remigrant scheme. That is something you had in the past. We do not have what is called a remigrant scheme. What we do, we address remigrants, or we address diaspora persons who are now residing here, because we check for persons who are living here. What we don't want is to be able to be allocating persons that they're living somewhere else, but they're still coming here to
Mm.
benefit. But as a Guyanese, we can't prevent anyone from applying. So you do have persons who are in the diaspora who have applications here. So we do check
Mm.
what that they're here, and they are integrated as part of our new housing development. Their part depends on their category. More than likely, most of them they qualify for what is called the high income, and so they are integrated as part of that development. But however, on the Silica City, for the persons who are coming back, we have been making available the Silica City houses on the phase one. We have currently 110 under construction, about 50 of those completed already. I would have mentioned that at the budget debates. We're, con- we're going out for on the phase one. We have another 145 more lots on the phase one that we're going out within another month to be able to build out those. So we do have the Silka City area available for persons who are coming from the diaspora. And this is something we want them to tap into, because the Silka City itself, as we've spoken about in previous programs, it's not just about what we're doing on phase one or with phase two, where we have catered for townhouses, etc. You have other aspect of the health hub, retirement home, all of that, the sports aspect in terms of golfing and the ability, well, not too far, you have the circuit, etc. So that city is the city is building out as we speak. There are other aspects that are being dealt with. And so persons who are coming back, it is the ideal location for them to seek occupancy.
Mm. All right, thank you. See, we've come to the end. I don't know if our host,
Already,
Shamiza.
can you
Shamiza, you have any
make me
question for
make
the
this a two
minister?
hours program when it's housing?
Well, we have to get you back, obviously. Shamiza, do you have any question for the minister?
We have a few questions, Dr. Tara, but the panel can continue for another few minutes. We do have
Okay,
quite a few people who just
okay,
joined us. So if the minister is okay with that, you can
Yep,
continue.
yeah,
absolutely. That's okay.
okay. All right. Let me go back the to the housing sector. I'm glad you don't have the water anymore under your purview.
But we
Now
are
the
working closely. In fact, as next week we have an update meeting with Minister of Utilities and GWI, because while we're doing all these areas, these new areas, equally important will be the planning, well, the continuous planning, because we're
mm,
we're continuous in our work. The continuous
mm,
planning to cater for the expansion in terms of water. That's very important. For me, electricity is easier because you have the expansion of the grid that is happening. But water tends to take a little longer. So we have an update meeting next week to continue that
okay.
interagency
I
collaboration.
I'm going to ask you a question that we had asked you before about have you, or I don't know who's the lead agency in Ghana to develop this billing code. Do you have an existing billing code, or it's evolving, or what?
So yes, you've asked. So you have on with under Ministry of Business, they have the bureaus that they have developed. They have a booklet that they normally issue. Then with us at housing through our planning department, we also have, in terms of parameters, in terms of zoning, we have responsibility for zoning, for approvals for zoning. Then with the local authorities too, they play their part in examining with the setbacks for the construction, the building, in terms of where the buildings are located in the context of the space, catering for parking, etc. So it's a multi-agency, but they do have a document. There is a document that is issued by Standard Bureau in terms of construction.
There is okay. Let me go back to the question. It says Silicon City. You're saying any person from diaspora can apply for one of those.
They have to
Oh,
be able, yes, but all, let me give one caveat. In everything that we are doing that I know so far, it, all applicant beneficiary has to be able to satisfy our criteria for an applicant as per someone who's applying for a house lot. So has to be recognized, Guyanese, has to be able to be first time owners. So once you've benefited from the system, then you cannot benefit again.
mhm.
So once you clear that hurdle, yeah, absolutely.
And with the case with house lots is a bit different. You have to be living and
We so for persons who are coming back, we try to, as far as practical, examine that they're here. And what we do is when we allocate it, we don't necessarily do walk-in allocations. We do this in batches, and we call those persons. So sometimes that's when we know we pick up a lot of information. Um,
mm,
it's not them answering the phone; it's some other family member they leave a number with. Something we can't verify these things 100%, but as far as practical, you want to target the people who are here, who are waiting.
okay.
But
Um,
of course, if somebody is in New York, as in your case, and they answer the phone there, then I won't know. They're just told what time to
the,
come or when to
I
come for an allocation.
I want to ask you a question that a lot of people have asked me to raise this with you. In the award of contracts, for example, they claim that there's a lot of irregularity there, and
In terms of,
when contracts are being awarded, I know you don't award contracts, NTAB awards that, but they're saying, and they have produced some evidence that there's some this corruption in the process. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
there's a body, but if there's anybody has a challenge on an award for a contract, then there's a competent body to that they can go and lodge their complaint, and there's a procurement commission, and so they can go there and lodge any complaint, and they do have sometimes, if what once there's a complaint lodged, then the agency that is involved, because as you rightly said, National Procurement and Administration Board, which falls on the Ministry of Finance, is a board by themselves. So they will award based on the recommendations made by the evaluators. But in our case, we will have a board here, Central Housing and Planning Authority, and then of course once it's above
Mm,
this 50 million CMIL, then it goes to the MP tab.
what people are complaining about when they go to these appeal board, like they won't get justice and they're scared of victimization, etc. For example,
We can get it both ways, though, Doc. I mean, and that's the same issue with complaints of persons who have been duped in terms of
um,
land transactions.
yeah, no,
Oftentimes, we
I'm
go
just telling you what
no,
they're
no, yes,
saying.
and yeah, sure.
And the Public Procurement Commission, for example, for the last 5 years, you only got 10 complaints, which is average of two per year. That shows you people apparent reluctance to go and report to them. So I'm just telling you what people are telling us, and So
But we also, yeah, so that's why I was giving a parallel where I am aware persons complain of some sort of irregularity. They've been they've been told send money to MMG, they'll get a house lot, all kind of things.
mhm,
And when these things are reported, in order to advance the process, it needs a statement. In any normal society, you need a
mhm,
statement to work on. And that's
no,
where the challenge has been. And the same in this case. We
okay.
welcome people, we welcome complaints, we welcome as a government, we welcome these things.
Mhm.
But then for it to
No,
move forward, we also need complainants to come forward.
yeah, well, I've been telling people that too, the same thing what you said that they should come forward. Vish, as you are back, you have any final thoughts to the minister?
No, no, it really has been a very impressive program. I mean, I myself learned quite a bit that I didn't know of. I think the minister may have forgotten or to mention that in the housing the housing program of financing, there is also a working relationship with banks like NBS and I think Republic Bank and so forth that do provide loans. Once you have a lot that you own, you could get loans, and I believe housing has to agree or give verification of the allotment of the lot.
Mhm.
So so what has happened is that the banks have removed one of the hindrance in the past has been the collateral. So some of the banks in the past were asking a 5%, 10% equate. And so the land, it can be utilized. The allocated land can be, they accept that as the collateral. That's what Dr. Bisram is alluding to. So
Mhm.
it's much more easier for persons to be able to acquire a mortgage. And even I was commending one of the banks here locally, um, that I'm commending them because more of the banks have come on board. Historically, you see what 3 or 4 banks alone were working with us. More have come on board. They recognize the huge loan portfolio that is available for mortgage financing. And so a lot of them have come on board. And now I see now competition. Well, 2 banks have raised the barriers of the to make
Mhm.
it accessible for borrowing for your houses. So move the ceiling. So one gone to
Mhm. All right,
40. Yeah.
Professor Buru, your final thought?
Yeah, yeah. One last question I have for you, Minister. Uh, with climate risk, what is the ministry doing about that, especially for flooding?
So that's why if you notice I mentioned in terms of on here on the coastline, we've shifted, we've already started shifted to make available on the highway. And that's one aspect. A second aspect, of course, is working in collaboration with, because suitability of land, that's some things we examine. And if you notice when earlier I said on region 4 here, we're reaching to the wetlands. So once you meet to reach to that, that means we're reaching to our capacity, and we have to shift direction. But we're working closely with NDIA too for guidance, as part of our drainage network is very important. I know when you had started, I'm not sure if we had gone live as yet, but you had asked about flooding, etc. So at some point, I would love for us to come back and speak on what is happening in other contexts, not just about building houses, but in the
Mhm.
country's enhancement, the Georgetown Plan, our role that we're playing with the King's Foundation, so the
Mhm.
beautification and enhancement of George.
Right, right.
That alone requires a program.
Probably, yeah.
So
We'll get you back on that.
and
Yeah,
so
we
we
love to have we
so,
love to have that. That
Yeah.
that
so we don't we
that
have a
would be exciting.
tripartite ministry we're working with ourselves, so housing, Ministry of
Mhm.
Local Government and Regional Development,
Mhm.
Ministry of Public Works. So a lot of what you've heard about the drainage, because drainage is important in
Mhm.
terms of once you're talking about flooding. So they work to be done at drainage level, Georgetown and other communities, but
Right.
we're in a massive way starting off to transform Georgetown. So come to Georgetown in another year, even then the changes what you won't recognize the changes that
Mhm.
are going to be that are taking place before your eyes.
Mhm.
So we want
Thank
to
you.
ask for a dedicated program in that regard.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank
that
you
would be
very much,
exciting.
Minister. Shamisa, any questions from viewers?
Thank you, Dr. Tara. Yes, we do have quite a few questions, but in regards to time, we will try to take one question per person and go down as quickly as we can. This question is from Ramona. She says, "Does this mean, Minister Kroll, that residential areas will be respected as residential areas, and sports bar will not be allowed to operate, as is the case of the Eclipse Sports Bar? This bar has not provided any parking facilities for the patrons, and now the newly constructed side streets are being used for patrons parking. The building parameters are not adhered to, and my question is, why the entrance of this bar sits on the government property? Is this not squatting?" And I know she's brought this up to you, Minister, before in regards
I
to the
can if
bar.
respond to the last part. Look, I won't know where the property falls, so, but I
Right.
can give you a general answer in terms of approvals. So something like that will not be solely in the purview of central housing. So that has GRA and the others who are also involved, because you have liquor sale, right?
Right.
But zoning is very important. You have some of the older areas, however, you have some of the older areas that have evolved, and so the monitoring of communities is sometimes the local authorities, they leave these things up to just central housing. The local authorities have a major role too to play in the implementation of ensuring law order is maintained in their communities. Even the very squatting that we talked about earlier in some of the community local authority areas, they need to address that. You don't have to wait on central housing. But it's I won't comment on the bar in particular, but I'll comment in general to say, yes, what you have a legal authority to deal with noise nuisance. You have an agency that deals with approval for the liquor sale. Um, but on a parallel will be a question will be all those supermarkets that you see popping up at so many corners, and the myth sometimes is being saying that it's Chinese applying. It's not. It's actually local, the owners of the buildings who are fellow Guyanese who are making the application, and they are then subletting those probably to the Chinese. But there's not the Chinese that are making the application here. But we're paying attention to those supermarkets because you're seeing them popping up all over. But yes, zoning is of concern, and we do cater in every new scheme that we develop. So that's why I said the older ones will have its own challenges, but the new schemes that we're developing, we do have. If it's purely residential, then it would not be able to accommodate that kind of activity.
Perfect. And this question is from one of our YouTube viewers. Is there some coordination or collaboration on the application process and repatriation? And I
Repatriation.
think it was based on what you were saying at the time, which was some time back. So we can skip
I
that
think you
one.
refer to remigration, not repatriation.
Right. So okay. So well, I answered that earlier because they when you're applying, you can apply as a remigrant. We have one of that field when you're applying online or on the form. You can apply a remigrant, and even your address that you will put as a remigrant will not be your local address, obviously, because you're a remigrant. You'll have the address at which you reside, and that's why I said once that comes to our attention and we're dealing with it in the pool, then we clarify whether the persons are here or not.
Perfect. And then this question is from Mr. Jailal. He says, "Can the Honorable Minister please comment on the status of the new housing scheme for Storeville East and West?
Mhm.
The main roads leading in are filled with huge potholes, awaiting light and water."
So, just to answer the one portion of the Stroudville would be one of the three that I said earlier that those persons can that have a legitimate right to be complaining about. I'm just to tell Mr. Jalal we're visiting Region 3 next week. I was supposed to do it this week, but the energy conference took up some time. But in terms of lighting, we do have a massive program, community program that is coming, that has started Lighting for communities goes hand in hand in terms of waiver for the energy consumption and occupancy. So, for housing perspective, once we have a particular level of occupancy, then we have been moving aggressively to do the roads. But the access road, as he alluded to, I'll pay some attention to it. Yes,
Okay. And this, what about Enterprise Phase 2? And this goes back to when you were speaking in regards to that.
yeah. In terms of when it will be ready,
Yes.
uh, Enterprise Phase 2. I know it's one of those areas we have the construction ongoing, but it should be nearing completion because that's infrastructure work is happening there. That's for sure.
Um, 6 months. All right. So a lot of the questions has to do with people saying that they've been waiting a long time for their lands. Some of them have mentioned that they are backed up, to 2020 and beyond. And so I know you mentioned earlier that you are working. Do you go by applications sent in year by year, or is it just by area? How does it work?
Wait, the allocations or no? Because you said
Allocations, yeah.
no. Yes. So if it's the other regions, we are working 2020. We're clearing off 2025 and prior. For the other regions, that's what we're working on. Region 4, as I said, we're moving it. We haven't started a Region 4 allocation proper since we're back in this period. That we're working on now. That's going to be happening within, sometime in April. But we working with years. So, for example, Region 4 will deal with 2021 and prior, as well as we have an aggressive housing program for Region 4. So some of those persons, if they've indicated an interest in the house, then we will leave them back for the houses to be built. In terms of persons who may be waiting, anyone is 2020 should not be waiting for access. Definitely not. But what the oldest areas, as I said, is Block 1, Block 7, and this a portion at Stortville on Region 3.
Perfect. Well,
So
thank
maybe
you
that
so
was
much,
the
Minister.
information.
Thank you so much for being here this evening, for answering all the questions. I know a lot was thrown at you tonight. Thank you for your transparency, and thank you for all your knowledge about everything that was asked tonight. Uh, I want to thank our panel for being here this evening and our viewers for their questions. Until next time, I am your host, Shamiza Ali, and this is the Guyana Dialogue. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Minister. Don't go. Just
Thank you very
very
much.
different.
And
Oh,
Go ahead.
just to
your
celebrate
closing
a bit.
remarks, Minister Croal.
Pardon me?
Your closing remarks before we go.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know we didn't even get time to go into all what we plan to do this year, but I just want to, I'll end with this in the same vein of what we're speaking about. For your listeners to understand, we want them to know where we're going, and that's why we're giving the bigger picture. And when I said just a little patience, once you have an idea of what years we are dealing with, what we are doing, then you can be rest assured all those pending applicants will be addressed. This government, PBPC government, will not rest until we can feel comfortable to reach to a level that we say everyone has access to their home, everyone owns their own home, and then similarly, while we're working on home ownership, also means building communities because we want to establish some minimum. We have established some minimum criteria as to what your community should be like. And so this is something we're working assiduously to ensure we implement. It's a lot of resources that are being injected for the housing program. A lot of persons take for granted. They think it's just you just turn up, you're allocated, and that's it. The whole process starts from acquisition of land, preparing of plans, doing the infrastructure work, with zero infrastructure work. These are all lands that are there, farming sugarcane land farm, lands that were there idly by probably some of cattle farming lands. So you have zero infrastructure. We have to put roads, drainage, culverts, etc. So it's costly. And so that's why sometimes when I hear a lot of persons say, oh, Guyana has vast lands. All the land should be free. You know that they're not knowledgeable of what they're saying. But certainly, as we get more resources, more are being injected to our sector, and we'll be able to do much more like what we're doing now to have other initiatives, not just construction of houses, allocation, but other initiatives to support other members of our population that are maybe vulnerable and needs the necessary assistance. So no one will be left behind.
Thank you. And I know a lot of people have questions. We do see your questions. Please follow the Guyana Dialogue page, guys, so
What
that,
we can do a
yeah.
separate. I don't mind another because I can come with more details in terms of by area,
Yeah.
etc. If
Well,
Right.
we'll have
one
you
in terms
record.
of more technical answers.
Yeah, in
So
another couple
if
months.
there, Dr. Tara, hopefully you're able to facilitate it, and we will
Yeah.
definitely love to answer more
Yeah.
questions and take more time to do it. Please follow the page, follow me, so when we do have Minister Croal and other ministers within the government that might be of importance to questions that you might have, you'll be able to be notified of it. So thank you so much for taking the time to
So,
be here this evening. I am your host, Shamiza Ali. Good evening, everyone.
so on
Thank
behalf of
you.
myself,
Thank
Minister
you.
Ben, and the entire team of us at Housing and Central Housing Planning Authority, happy Mashamani to all
Oh,
of
yeah.
Guyana,
Yes.
and
Right.
have a
Correct.
blessed weekend, rest of the week.
Well, happy Mashamani, yes.